We're here today in solidarity with the people of Honduras who have been in resistance every day since June 28th of this year, when the legitimate president, Manuel Zelaya, was kidnapped by the military and thrown out onto the runway in Costa Rica. Every day since then, the people of Honduras, across the country of Honduras, have shown their resistance to this coup, and they continue to do that today in Tegucigalpa, in San Pedro, in Colón, in Olancho, in Siguapeque, in all of the country, because they are supporting a boycott of these illegitimate elections, and that's why we're here today. Since June 28th, when President Manuel Zelaya was kidnapped by the military, acting in conjunction with the oligarchy and the right wing in Honduras, he was kidnapped, taken in his pajamas, and dumped on the airport runway in Costa Rica, which everybody except the United States has classified as a military coup. Since then, every day there's been resistance in the streets of Tegucigalpa, San Pedro Sula, in the highways, in the countryside. I think we're now at, must be 161 days, something like that, of resistance. The main demand of the resistance from day one was the restitution of the constitutional government, Manuel Zelaya, that the people who carried out the coup should be withdrawn from power and punished for their illegal action, and that the people should be allowed to go forward with having a vote on whether or not they wanted to change their constitution. Those have been the key demands. Those were the demands up through the end of October, when, after a couple of failed negotiations in Costa Rica, in which Manuel Zelaya signed on to agreements that could have resolved this big crisis in a more political fashion, and the golpista government never signed any of those agreements. On October 29th, there was an agreement supposedly reached in Tegucigalpa with the intervention of the U.S. State Department. I happened to be there in Tegucigalpa as part of a delegation, human rights delegation at that time. Everyone thought that that agreement would restore Zelaya to office, establish a government of national reconciliation, and there were a whole number of different issues yet to be resolved, but that it would go forward and perhaps start to end the immediate crisis of the coup. However, with the full knowledge, in my opinion, of the State Department, the golpistas had never had any intention of carrying through. They immediately sent the agreement to Congress, but Congress had already been dismissed and sent on vacation and has still not yet reconvened. This was October 30th, they were dismissed. The golpistas refused to carry out any restitution of the constitutional government and declared that they would go forward with the November 29th elections to elect a new government. At that time, the State Department in the United States issued a statement that was a surprise to some people, saying that really the recognition of the November 29th elections as legitimate was not dependent on the agreement being complied with just having been signed, was not dependent on the restoration of constitutionality, and was not dependent, in fact, on any of the points of the agreement.
The U.S. policy in Central America has been very bad. You know, Honduras, my country was a military base during the 80s to confront the revolutionary movement in Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and based on that repression, a lot of people immigrating precisely to the United States, and that repression was made by the U.S. I mean, the U.S. was training the Contras, the Contra-Revolutionary Army from Salvador, the paramilitary group from Honduras, Negro Ponte. He was the co-founder of the death squad in Honduras, who is called 316, and this paramilitary group now is active, representing the people who have been fighting against the coup in Honduras. And right now it's very sad because we've been hearing that the Obama administration has been trying to play two faces here. This how you call doble moral. because they been trying to legitimize this regime, this coup regime, which has been repressed. So, and it's clear that the Obama administration didn't like what happened in Honduras, because Zelaya, he was doing a good things to help the more poor people. And technically, they just don't want to have another referendum in Honduras like happened in Venezuela or in Ecuador or in Bolivia, because if that happened in Honduras, and that will send a message to the region. And that's why the U.S. government has been playing these two phases. They meet with the coup makers 3 weeks before they did the military coup, and they didn't want to do it in the way that happened. But it's clear that the Obama administration didn't like what Zelaya was trying to do. And even though Zelaya is not a leftist government, he's part of the traditional party, but he was trying to do good things.
I think the hypocrisy of the U.S. government in regards to the situation in Honduras is obvious. Obama at first declared it was a military coup and he condemned it. The State Department issued a statement at the same time saying it wasn't a military coup, although it was something that wasn't a very nice thing to do, and they would take some actions and it wasn't a good thing. By U.S. law, of course, if it's a military coup, they have to freeze all the funds, withdraw the ambassador, cut off relations, etc. So there was a method behind this inconsistency and contradictory statements. Since then, the U.S. has made what I would say are weak pronouncements against the coup and against the violations of human rights, while at the same time maintaining a position that Zelaya needed to negotiate these points, that they needed to come to a national reconciliation, and that it would be a good thing if the elections could go forward. This became more apparent after the failure of the October 29th, October 30th agreement, when Tom Shannon issued his favorite statement that we're going to basically saying we will recognize the elections on November 29th. I think that for most people in Latin America who have a lot of experience with military political coup d'etats, this whole episode has revealed that once again the U.S. interests in Latin America do not come down on the side of the people, the majority of people who are poor and struggling, and do not come down on the side of a real democracy in which those people could speak.